Yeah, in these big legislative fights, it seems there's always the inertia is always to the right. The pull is always to the right. You saw that in the stimulus package. I mean, going back to the Obama, you saw that in the Obama stimulus, where it was bargaining down the amount. It was never bargaining up the amount. You saw that in the ACA, which was public. We got to get rid of the public option. We got to get rid of this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And this time around, we're watching in slow motion this exact process, and everyone pretty much expected this to be the process. Right. And I mean, they named the guy Joe Manchin. We've known this for many years now that we would be in this exact situation. Here's my concern. I agree that there needs that momentum has to stop, and that the drift there has to be a counterbalance on the left, but. Is it possible that Joe Manchin, there are other senators, but he's the main guy. Is it possible that Joe Manchin calls their bluff and says, "Well, you know what?" He says, "Well, you know what? Let's just not pass anything."
It is possible, but he's going to get a lot of pushback from Joe Biden if he says that, right? And then the onus is then on Joe Biden on what he wants to do. And of course, what are we talking about here? We're talking about extremely popular positions. Raising the minimum wage is extremely popular in the country. These stimulus checks are extremely popular, the most popular thing in the entire bill. So Biden, by weighing in on Manchin's side, would have to say, we want to make this less popular. we want to actually reduce the popularity of this bill. So, he'd have to read the tea leaves on that. But the difference between the ACA debate and the 2009 stimulus debate now is that the margin in the House is small enough that a few House members can really affect the debate in a way that they actually couldn't in some of these other contexts. Although, I mean, you could say because so many right-wing Democrats voted against the ACA, the margins were sufficiently low enough that if Dennis Kucinich and several other people said, no, we have to have this XYZ, they could have stopped the whole thing. But there was a balancing act to play there. The point is they never really took that step, right? I believe I remember that Kucinich got on a plane with Obama and he got off the plane and he said, okay, I'm going to vote for the bill. So the point is that let's have the debate. Let's have the discussion. And if you have this discussion in public, you're forcing Manchin and you're forcing the Biden and the leadership to choose between a popular and an unpopular option. So make them choose the unpopular option, and then we'll see what happens to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the process has to be opened up. I mean, this is also very simple to understand, I think. I mean, it's not like the ACA, this gargantuan thing about a whole sector of the economy that nobody really understands. Right. Not even the experts can understand the totality of it. This is simple. It's a dollar amount. It's freaking Price is Right. We should be talking about the dollar amount in public. So that your average person can follow it. Everyone loves following numbers. Look at the stock crap. Everyone loves looking at a number because everyone's at home and they're bored, and we're just obsessed over numbers. So
are you on Wall Street bets, Virgil?
Well, okay. This is. I don't want to get too off. But yeah, I have a very strong familiarity with Reddit. And, my portfolio is doing great. I tend to invest more in podcasts than in things like cryptocurrency or retail stores from the 1990s, but everyone has a different strategy.
But look, you're right. People know the minimum wage. They understand it. 23 times, the last 23 times that the minimum wage has been on state ballots for whether or not to hike it, it has passed 23 times in a row. And that's going back to the 90s.
Most recently in Florida, doing better than Joe Biden. Exactly.
So, go ahead. If you want to have a fight about the minimum wage in here, if Joe Biden and Joe Manchin want to take that heat, let them. But let's have that conversation in public.
Do you suppose that, let's say this is a public fight. This is a fight between the left wing of the caucus, the right wing of the caucus. Who do you think Joe Biden is more likely to lean on?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Now, Biden has said in these meetings that we've heard that he's had with House Democrats, with Senate Democrats, he said, "Go big." I want you to go big. So, I mean, so far he's taking the language of taking the side of the left pole. However, he has also said we might want to think about making these stimulus checks more targeted. So I think he's committed to the minimum wage piece. I mean, he signed an executive order to raise the minimum wage for federal employees and contractors to $15 an hour. It was part of his campaign. I think it depends on what it comes down to, is my point. If it comes down to the minimum wage and it's like the whole Democratic caucus versus Joe Manchin, yeah, he might lean on Joe Manchin. They did it in a ham-handed way when they sent out Kamala Harris to speak to West Virginia media, to local media. I don't know if you've heard about this.
Yeah.
But, I did not see this story.
And Manchin got really pissed off. And
that's a signal.
They sent her out to say, let's go big. And then she made some bizarre comment where she was trying to talk about abandoned mine lands. And she instead said abandoned land mines, which was not appealing to the people of West Virginia. I mean, I'm against them too, and I'm sure West Virginians are, but I don't think there are that many there.
She and Biden are quite the pair.
So anyway, it depends on what it's on. If it's on that, I think that, maybe Manchin gets knuckled under. If it's about these checks, Biden is certainly giving signals that he's willing to bend on that. And
couldn't Biden also be thinking, well, it's I won, I'm the president, it's my package, so you just got to vote for it.
Yeah,
I want this dollar amount. I'm laying down the law. We're not going bigger. We're not going smaller. Here's the amount.
Right. And Manchin has said, we want Biden to be successful, or he said something like that. So, there's certainly a way this plays out where Biden holds firm and everybody reluctantly agrees. I mean, Manchin did vote for reconciliation. He voted to pass forward a budget resolution that starts this process. So he certainly hasn't cut off yet.
I've only caught like a handful of stories about this, but what's the deal with this idea of getting Republicans on board for this package, and how's that impacting the negotiations?
I don't think it's impacting it very much, and I actually think that what did George W. Bush say? Rarely is the question asked, "Is our children learning?" This is a case of, is our Democrats learning? In 2009. They waited around for a bunch of Republicans to weaken the stimulus. They waited around to try to get bipartisan support when they had 60 votes on the ACA. And they waited months and months and months until finally passing it at the last minute. And then, Ted Kennedy died, and they lost they lost the Massachusetts seat. And, that was, and then they had to sort of jerry rig. They actually used reconciliation to finish passing the ACA. So that was the lesson of 2009. They went small with the stimulus. They never got much more of it. They waited forever for bipartisanship, and they didn't get it. So in 2021, instead of doing that, they moved forward immediately to start the reconciliation process. Now, Biden had a meeting for 2 hours with Senate Republicans who put forward their own version of the bill that was like a third of the size of Biden's bill. He did have the meeting, but it doesn't seem that anything came of that he just sort of listened to them and said, okay, thanks, now we're going to do it our way. There's definitely a world in which that meeting takes on this totemic significance, and Biden says, look, they're willing to come meet us halfway. We got to do something about that. Nancy, Chuck, figure out a way to bargain something and make it work. They didn't do that. I mean, we do have to admit that they did not do that. And they are moving toward a pretty expansive bill, although some things on the margins might not make it in there. I don't think that the old game that Republicans were trying to play of like, just wait, we'll be bipartisan, just wait for us, just listen, talk to us. I don't think that's working.